यार वो clip वाला LED देना, I just want to check how it works. Okay guys, these are slightly better teeth than you had yesterday. The ones that you had yesterday were for veneer preps, these are for composite, so it's much better. You have some nice translucency on the edge, a bit too much. There is no halo effect, but there are intrinsic mamelons. Okay, so what we are first going to do, is actually that we are going to create. Can I have some composite here, please? What we are actually going to do first is to create an index. The reason being, we haven't had a fractured tooth that we have built our wax up on. What we actually have is an intact tooth, but we will make it into a fractured tooth eventually. So what we want to do is to take a little bit of silicone. अभी दिखाया था ना मुझे सुबह. हाँ इधर explain. So again the same thing, you mix your putty like you have to. A3 enamel and A2 dentine दे दो. A3 dentine भी चलेगा. Give me A3 dentine is fine.
This is A2 dentine.
चलेगा बस चलेगा. That's fine. नहीं ये तो दोनों dentine है. एक enamel.
I'll give you enamel, no? This one, A3 enamel.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
So which
this
one
fine.
should I
Yeah,
take?
that's fine. Just keep it.
Okay.
So mix your putty. Yeah, I'll just check. Give me 1 second. Mix your putty, and then once you mix your putty and you're creating your index, zoom. Keep it close to this. Focus. Okay. Mix your putty and make sure about a couple of things here. Number one, you should have some thickness of putty between your finger and that. It should not be made paper or razor thin. So you have to have some thickness, like I said yesterday. Number two, you should just about have the incisal edge covered, which means you should not have the incisal edge of these teeth where the putty rolls over. The reason is, if you're going to do that, when you will build your enamel, there will be a lip. There will be like a wave or a lip and too much enamel on the incisal edge. So what you want to do is you want to build right up to the edge, and in case for any reason that it happens that you end up building a little bit too much or a little bit extra, then you can always cut it off with a blade later. But try not to do so much. I also said to you earlier, I like heavy putties, and for purposes like these to make silicone keys or index, I typically buy putty which is a quick set. It is very helpful to do so. So I clean up and I will now allow this to set. When you make a putty index, you always cover at least 2 adjacent teeth on the side, 1 on each side at least minimum. This putty, after you apply the rubber dam, will have to be sliced or cut into a section where it will easily adapt back on the teeth. No. Just leave it straight, plain. But the material should go into the embrasures for sure, but you don't need to notch them. And also again in the relevant places that you need to. If it's irrelevant, you don't need to do it. Okay. Now once this will be done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a large fracture of that tooth, like here, with some ragged margins, and then we're going to prepare and bevel that tooth and make it smooth, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to do our composite restoration. Okay. So when you create the putty index, like you can see here, just about to the incisal edge, not covering over. Can you understand and see that? No, not for this purpose. But use a good A silicone. Don't use a C silicone. Use a good quality A silicone. In case you feel that right at the edge there's some lipping or overhanging, you can always remove a little bit and then clean it up. It's not probably fully set, but let's just say okay. So I have some space here, thickness. It is right to the incisal edge, and it gives me a good form of the tooth. Probably need to wait another minute and it will be set. And blah, blah, blah. Can I have an adapter, please?
For what, sir?
For the micromotor?
Okay. Not the Softflex one. Latch.
I should have it in my box also. No, it's okay. I'll do that. So I'm just taking, you can use any blue diamond, green diamond, whatever you want. So you can use any coarse diamond right now, because all I'm going to do is cut this tooth. Pulp exposure, no worry. Oops, sorry. I'm just randomly slicing the tooth. Feels like it doesn't want to stay. Can you give me another adapter maybe? Okay. Once we've done this, once you've got a fracture line like this, you can see that there are lots of rough edges. Right here, there's a lip, there's a rough edge, there's a rough edge, there's a rough edge. Okay? I'm first going to go ahead and create a bevel. How do I keep the tooth with the model? Something like this. Something like this, but I go up and down and I prepare like that. Is that quite clear? Slightly lower speed, so I have more control. So I first go and swipe and create a smooth line like that. And then I go all to the sharp edges and I try and round them off. And then I make a sort of a extended sunburst bevel. On the palatal surface, I just go and create a little slight bevel, just rounding off the sharp edges. Try and eliminate any unsupported enamel that you would have on the interproximal side. So what we've just done is sort of smoothened out the sharp edges. And this is what I've done initially. No sharp lines anymore. Can you see that? And then what I can do, you can do that in the mouth with a plastic instrument or anything. I'm just going to remove any unsupported enamel that I might have with a blade, or I can use a burr and I can do that. Is that clear to everyone? Yes?
The scope is ready, so if you want to define it now.
Okay, I'll do it. Sunny, can I give you my camera as well to take some pictures?
Yeah.
Take 3-4 stills, maybe a short video if you can later.
Yeah.
Under the scope maybe. Okay, so once we've done this, we then take a mandrel. Is there a Soflex mandrel that you have? Yesterday I had given you a Soflex mandrel. Here, Soflex is here.
Yes, sir. I'll give you the mandrel.
I had given you one of my mandrels.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect.
Sliders are also
Take it.
available.
Yeah, no, just take one. Yeah, okay, perfect.
Shall I take it out?
No, it's okay. So, that's okay. So now what you do is, once you have done this basic preparation of your tooth, you can then take polishing disc and you can then go ahead and smoothen out and make an extended bevel even further, going circular like a sunburst again. Remove all the unsupported enamel that you might have on the side. This is medium grit, but on the tooth I would use coarse grit. That's okay. And I create something very, very smooth. Okay? And then we are done like this. Now what you will do is you will go ahead. Can we have some spirit? Let's just use that.
We had spirit, sir. 1 second.
That's okay, this works. And now what we have is we have a fracture, and that's okay, no problem. That's fine. We have a fracture and we have a silicon key index that we have adapted, right? I will then take my fissura and I will then mark where the fracture line is. And here I can see my fracture line. Of course you can't see it, but I have a mark. You understand what I'm doing, right? I'm just scratching the surface right at the edge and taking it up into that section, yeah? So it makes a mark and scratches that surface. Is that correct? Do you understand? Okay, perfect. Always clean with alcohol and blow air on it. Otherwise you will have things getting stuck. Bonding agent, please. Micro brushes. Where? No, not this one. The sponge brushes. You have the sponge ones? Okay.
Sunny, please sir, एक मिनट आना. Micro brushes.
The sponge brushes. What do you do your bonding with? This one is fine, no?
That's all.
Okay, that's fine. है ना? Yeah, okay. Okay, that's fine. Okay, now what we're going to do next is that we are going to put some composite, which is an enamel shade, on the palatal shell. It's going to light thoda sa. First things first, on this tooth here, you'll apply some bond. One thing, whenever you take any bonding agent and you want to apply, shake it first. You always have the heavier particles settle at the bottom. In this bottle, in 3M, you can use you can just dispense through the bottle. You don't need to actually go and pour and waste some bonding. Anyways, once you apply this, you will go ahead and apply on the tooth, which here is the model. According to the protocol, 2 or 3 of them. Yeah. And once we've done that, make sure that you will blow some air to make the ripples go away. उसके नीचे करके देखें, maybe they'll be able to see more detail. That's okay. Take a little bit of pure bond, place it here, and then you can even try and remove from here like this. Because otherwise what tends to happen is when you put your composite, it sticks to the instrument rather than staying there. If you glaze it, you don't have to put it, like it doesn't have to be wet. If you can see here, it's like just glazed. You can hardly see any bond, right? So it's not going to really affect the color as much or bother you with anything, but it allows you or helps you to adapt the composite to that piece of silicone. When you are going to use composite, remember something. When we look at these composite tubes, and I like tubes more than I like capsules, when you cut composite off, it is our tendency to save material. So what we end up doing most of the time is that we end up cutting right there at the edge and slicing it down. Can you see it or no? Like this, exactly at the edge. Okay? Don't do it. Do not do this. The reason is every time you slice your composite and take it down right at the edge, you take some plastic with you in that instrument. Also, a lot of people have the tendency of using composite like this. You always scrape away some rubber or plastic from inside the tube and take it in your composite. And that's why when you start doing the restoration and see under magnification, you start seeing those black spots in your restorations. They are coming from that plastic tube. So do not do that. Okay? Once this is done, make sure that your hands are very, very clean like that. And then if they're very clean, and if they're not very clean, you can use some spirit and clean them. And I always tend to like to slightly roll my composite like that. Rolling it. Rolling the composite essentially creates a more homogeneous mix, because sometimes when you're taking composite off, and let's say it was a little cold, and if you take a composite off that's a little cold and you don't do this, and you have a mass of composite at the edge, you can have a flaky white appearance. Right? So when you roll it, that flaky white appearance goes and it becomes all homogeneous and soft and nice. Is that clear? You take a little bit that you need. I don't need too much, just a little bit is fine, thanks. Better? And then you start to adapt this up to the area. Then you start to adapt it up to the area to where you had made that line. So now you know that it's not too big, not too less, not too much. If you see any voids, correct them, adapt, adapt, adapt. See, pull, 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 pull. Do not pull like this, because then it gets dragged. Get my point? I speak too much. Most people will say adapt to the line and finish. Maybe I say too many things. Okay. Now you use this instrument called the condenser, and I'm now going to tap and tap and tap and tap, remove all the porosities that I might have, pull it to the line where I lost some composite from, and I had done that on purpose because I knew there's a lot of excess, and I remove. And I pull it towards that line again, and I know I have a lot of excess here, and I remove. And I remove again. There's a lot of composite that I don't need here. But you see, I'm slowly and slowly pushing my composite. I'm not really pulling it too much or doing anything too much to it. Take the thinner part and make sure that you're taking away all the excess. And see, why I'm able to do this even now very, very effectively is the microscope, right? Because I can see so much. Increases your working time sometimes, but improves what you're going to create in the patient's mouth. Once you're done with this, you can sometimes use a good quality micro brush, and you can thin it down, adapt. I love a good micro brush like this. This has nylon bristles on it, I think, yes. Not very good. Shall I tell you and confess with you something, guys?
Please.
This is my first time building a composite under a microscope for anteriors. Seriously, I always use loops. I have tried my hand on building some posterior composites and doing some veneer preps, but just recently. And I have to tell you, I'm enjoying it. I love magnification. So my 3D visualization of how thick or thin this would be, which comes with practice, is as good as yours with any magnification. I feel right now, from what I see under the scope, is that I cannot see so much of the color of my silicon, so I'm going to thin it down even further. Some extra composite coming off from there. I will thin the incisal down also further. Take away some composite from there. Any of you using a microscope? Now is looking like I would have liked to see it, more or less. A little bit extra still here. And I will make some mistakes today, purely because I'm seeing like this for the first time, but let's see. Once this is done, just give me a second. It is too thick. Can you see that properly?
No.
We'll
Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now it's okay. So it doesn't.
एक मिनट ठीक है ना मतलब सिग्नल कम हो जाता है
Once you create this shell and you create it properly, other things become a lot simpler. So spend some time to control the thickness. And the key for you, as I told you earlier, is that you should start to see the color of the
So थोड़ा सा ऊपर.
okay, not the best, but not the worst.
ऊपर. Yes.
And then we go ahead and we cure.
So light बंद करना है ये वाला.
नहीं नहीं, उसको क्या फर्क पड़ता है? Now I told you that in the crevice or in the undercut area or in the zone of demarcation between the enamel and the tooth, I typically today put injectable posterior bulk fill materials because they're quite strong. Here in case of that, because we don't have it, we're going to substitute using a little bit of flow. Can you see it, guys? Can you see it or no? Okay. I probably didn't show you because sometimes I know what I'm doing, sometimes. But the fact is that you always make sure that you have space for your posterior sectional matrix, which I do have. I add a little bit of flow. Can you see it? Yes? So it's always yeah. So that's why I use the posterior bulk fill material, because they are more opaque. Also, they're stronger. Then anytime you feel you might leave air bubbles or there might be anything trapped, use a fissura, or you can use probe, explorer, whatever you have. Make sure there's nothing there, and then you cure. After this, next step will be
enamel border. Hello.
hello kisko hello. Exactly. I remove. Can you see?
Yes.
Let's see how thin it is. Can you see the dark or no? Yeah, that's good. You can see white, you can see black. Yes? Posterior sectional matrix. Be a little bit careful because this is a very thin shell, you might fracture. Oh, yeah. Okay, no problem. We have to actually open it up a little bit. So these shells can be very thin, you have to be a little bit careful when you build them. I will build it again very quickly, no problem. Takes me a few seconds.
What do you want, sir?
Nothing.
Yes. Yeah.
So you practice in Bangalore? Kerala. So how come you're not in Dubai? Everybody from Kerala is in Dubai. Or somewhere in the Gulf. Yeah. Okay. And now you can see what happens with the posterior matrix. It goes contours, sometimes you need to flex it out, sometimes you need to flex it in. If it's more feminine, you can make it more rounded. If you want masculine, you can make it more straighter. You can do a lot of things with these matrices. Where's the wooden wedge? Yeah. You then go ahead and you place your wooden wedge. Come on. It's a very bouncy resin, so I'm not too sure how good it's going to work. Okay, I'm not going to use the wooden wedge right now, purely for the fact that it doesn't seem to be, it's too thick also. Yeah, I'm going to cut it off.
Yeah.
I will cut it off and use it. Okay. Okay, done. Once you're done with this, then you will take some enamel and you will then adapt some enamel on the. Now I want to show you something carefully, okay? If you are not going to be very clean in your surface, once again, this one. Look at that black spot. If you don't magnify, you normally don't see this, but because I'm magnifying, I can see these small imperfections and impurities. Obviously, I would have it on a mixing pad, but we have it here. We just take some enamel, reduce the magnification now. Now when you go and you pack it, you can easily pack on that. If there's a plastic or a celluloid strip, it doesn't allow you to pack the enamel like this, correct or no? Work your way around, see on the side how high or how low you might be. Always try to see these restorations in 3 dimensions. Move your head left, right, or ask the patient to move their head left and right if you're doing it under a microscope. And you thin it down again. And again, one of my favorite instrument is a good micro brush like that. Always and always keeping in mind that you're not going to make it too high or too bulky. Can you see or no? Go to the line angle of the tooth, sorry. So once this is done, you cure. Is that clear? Yes? After you have done the proximal wall, you can then remove your band. Try not to remove the wedge. We are going to do it now, but try in the mouth not to remove the wedge. You have a contact. Can you see? Yes or no? Yes. Wow. No, yes or no? Okay. So that wedge and that separation allows you to have a contact. The enamel layer is not much higher than what it should be. Can you see that? Let's magnify. See, little bit high, but not too high. And at this point in time, if you want, and you want to eliminate excess, just take a blade and remove some excess like that. Is that quite clear for everyone? Here I know for a fact that I need to add a little bit more enamel here. This is very thin. Okay? So either I can do it now and add a little bit more enamel here, make it slightly more in volume, again more towards the incisal, and I build that and I add. and take away from the incisal here because we're going to add a halo effect. Remove anything that you might see which is not clean. Build that. And then what we're going to do next is, what are we going to do next? Okay, dentine it is then. We take some dentine. And what I would do actually, the first thing is I would take a very light dentine or opacious dentine, but a light dentine to create my halo. So what I would do is I would take a little bit of dentine, I would roll it in my fingers, make it really thin. I would take that and then I would put it onto the incisal edge. Is that quite clear for everyone? I take a thin rope and I'm bringing it, it's got a certain volume to it. It's not just being embedded inside, it has a certain volume of its own. And depends on the halo that you see in the mouth, how thin you want this to be. Is that clear or no? Can you see it happen? Okay. Can you see it happen a little bit better? Next, dentine, right? One big increment of dentine. So let's say we're going to take A3 dentine.
So you used which shade till now?
A3 enamel.
All over.
All over. And just A2 dentine on the incisal. If I had A1 dentine, I would have used A1 dentine on the incisal. Again, if there's a little bit of material left like this, no problem. Now you can remove it and throw it away. Again with the composite, there's some flakiness on the edges. No, it's fine. I'm just rolling it.
This is actually warming of composite.
No, not warming, just to make it homogeneous.
But there is some technique like that people.
Yeah, there are composite warmers.
Do you use that?
No. There is some research which says that if you warm them more than 60 degrees, it denatures the composite, starts to change character.
So you need to go up and left. Yes, that's it.
Now I'm adding one big bulk of dentine. Okay? I'm approximately right in my volume, how much I need. It's up to the top more or less.